Welcome back to Tug of Heart. Once again, I am sad to report that Lori is traveling. However, I'm very happy to report that Lori is again in New Mexico spending time with her son, Shalem. So, super excited about that. There's a generous time difference between New York and New Mexico. So, things being off a little bit and her, of course, spending time with her child is of high integrity. So we're gonna give her a pass. However, in her absence, you guys are stuck with me, and I'll try and keep you entertained, or at least be the voice so that you can throw your flip flops at the at the speaker. Today we're going to talk a little bit because every time that Lori is gone, like a little piece of me is gone. Clearly, this is Lori's brainchild, and she chose to invite me and share it with me. And to be honest, when I started this, I just wanted to be in her presence, albeit via Zoom or however we get this recorded. But I quickly found out that I missed out a lot, and I care deeply about my sister. So when she's gone, I think I get a little bit misty eyed, and I kind of realize, man, I really love my sister, and I miss her terribly. And while I'm happy for her, it does very little to subdue the fact that I miss her. So today's topic, love, a subtle definition. Now, I think that as we move into 2022, and probably in the last, probably from my teens until now, I have seen diluting of the word. And I don't want to be negative, but maybe even a little bit of a cheapening of the term love. I love this, I love that, I love you, and it doesn't seem to carry the same weight. And so I said, well, let's go through a little definition, because as we pass the time without Lori, we'll just do things that mean something to our heart. And so I think the best way to do this is to kind of identify the different types, because defining it is that's probably too lofty of a goal for me, and probably could do mildly better with Lori, but none of us will really get it or be able to explain and verbalize exactly what it means. So when we love grandma's cooking, we're just placing her cooking above the standard issue fare. And that could come from a lot of different reasons. I mean, we love it, but why? Well, we'll get into that. When we love our pets, we're recognizing that the human-animal connection is unique and it's meaningful. And there's a big difference between saying, I love dogs, I love animals, and I love my dog, Fido. So that we'll get into that a little bit. Loving our job. When we say I love my job, which would be, here's the plug, Bobby at Strong Island, he loves what he does. And I would venture to say that when we say I love my job, we're indicating that there is a yield other than the wages or contracted fees existent with that position, with that job, with that task. And that's kind of an interesting, to me at least, that's an interesting expression. I love my job. Well, then why are you charging? Well, because we're good at it, and we still have obligations, and we still have to satisfy financial needs on a day-to-day basis. And then we have loving another human, which is arguably the most challenging, but it can't exist without a participant. And there has to be presence. And we can argue this back and forth and say, some people love from a distance, and yes, but we definitely still have to have a participant. We have to have an not an object. I'm sorry, I was about to go there. We have to have an object of our affection, and so that's yet another level entirely. So as we go through this, let's start with the first one. When we say, I love chocolate, what we're saying is that, do you really love chocolate? I don't know, maybe we're not using that word correctly, but we're certainly trying to identify how much we actually like chocolate, which is more than any other confection. I love chocolate. I like donuts, but I love chocolate. So maybe I eat chocolate donuts. That's kind of it's a like. And so I think that when we're talking about the definition and trying to understand it, maybe it's a little bit more difficult because this is the part where we kind of use that word when we're just trying to explain how much we like something. Similarly, if we love a vehicle, that can identify our appreciation with the mechanical or aesthetic aspects of an automobile, which we hold in higher appreciation than other vehicles, but we're still just saying, I like this more. At what point does it become love? Well, that's that's something where I would encourage you guys to comment. While you're busy liking and sharing, comment and say, give us your interpretation and your understanding. We can always use that. So to love a dish or a recipe from a friend or a family member, when I started, I said about loving grandma's cooking. I think that this is where we start to touch on an emotional connection, because if you love grandma's cooking, is it grandma's cooking that you love, or is it that experience? Because each and every one of us can likely remember the smell of grandma. Grandma smelled, of a very specific scent. Her perfume, it was notable and oftentimes very consistent. Grandmas don't typically change. My grandma didn't, and so she always smelled the same. So when I went to grandma's house, it was impossibly reliable. I knew what to expect, and there was an emotional connection. So when I say I love grandma's cooking, that's not like just loving chocolate. That's not like I love that experience. And so that's probably about as close as I can get to actually kind of introducing the word love with a meal, and it's probably because it involved grandma. So I think that's kind of I guess if I was really digging deep, I would say I love the experience of eating at grandma's. And do I love it? Yeah, more than most things. I mean, I cherish that. I cherish that memory. I cherish that experience. And of many, many things in my life, that's a memory I wish I could revisit. But I hold it dear and I covet that memory. And that's, I think I actually can use the word I love that memory. So it's not so much the breakfast she made, but it is the experience of spending time with her. Now I've had a few dogs in my life, and I said, oh my God, I love my dog. My dog, crazy. I love my dog. I think that this is where I start to see a pattern. I loved that dog because I knew exactly what to expect from that dog. Was the dog perfect? Not at all. But that dog was affectionate. That dog was consistent. That dog really made me happy. Silly, funny, misbehaving, but I really got used to that dog, and I can say, man, I love that dog. And it kind of, I guess that also introduces an emotional element. Um, Probably because spending time with my pet altered me physically, calmed me. Um, I don't want to state facts, to a T, but I'm nearly certain I've read that pets reduce anxiety. They lower blood pressure. They help. I do know that here in Florida, they do bring dogs to the university at test time because they do better on their tests after they spend a little time with a dog. It calms them. It kind of removes them from um, their testing anxiety, maybe. So there's a lot of good things like that. Um, Next, I would talk about a job, and jobs are interesting because when somebody says that they love their job, um, they're satisfied and they enjoy their vocation. Um, they're saying, I enjoy the process chosen to satisfy my financial needs. Well, but do you love it? Um, I think I guess artists, if that is the closest that I can understand. Um, I know that my family's always been in construction. And I know that I like tinkering. And could I say I love tinkering? Probably. I could, and that'd be very accurate. Do I love construction? Pieces of it. The pieces that I love most about construction are breathing life into an otherwise destined for destruction. I purchased the home. I was lucky enough to purchase the home that my grandfather built for my grandmother when they were like 15 and 17 years old. And when I acquired it, it had been in a fire, and the weeds were 7 feet tall, and it was clearly not inhabitable. It didn't have doors, it didn't have windows. And I remember going there and I just started by cutting the weeds around the house and getting the burnt cinders out and the stucco that had fallen off the interior walls. And I took the cabinets out, and I took a fridge. Oh, I can still smell that fridge. I took a refrigerator out, and I took these things to the dump. And I remember sweeping the floors. And when I was sweeping the floors, I enjoyed it at a level that few things, you know, could similarly delight me. Um, and I remember over the course of several years, I'd go down and I'd install a window. Not like I did windows and doors. I mean, I'd put a window because I was dead set on building this home in a way that my grandparents had, which is just a little bit at a time with what I could afford, and never acquiring debt in the process. And it was a long process, and it took 5 years, I think. And but at the end, I was really happy. The reason that I say that story is because I remember that I loved that job, which I didn't really look at it as a job, but I loved it so much that when, like, say, an interior door frame had been burned and collapsed, and this was an old Adobe home, so that just kind of picture earthen bricks that are 13 inches wide and 4 inches tall. When the door frame had collapsed, these earthen bricks kind of crumbled, and I picked them up, I cleaned them, and I stacked them back in the walls with a new door frame. And I was just prideful. And all the little things that I found in the process. For instance, my grandfather, when he built this house, they didn't have running water. They had a hand pump in the front, in the courtyard, and they would pump water by hand. So when they finally brought water into the house, um, the story that I remember being told is that it was just a luxury, and it was such a luxury that he didn't want his sons, of which there were 5, to dirty the bathroom. So he made the door tall enough for my grandmother and his daughter, the 2 females, made it tall enough for them to walk through, but not tall enough for an upright son to walk through. And that was kind of romantic. And so I made that door, when I acquired the home, the tallest door in the home. And so it's these little teeny stories stitched together where I can say I really loved that job. And because there was there was a yield other than the financial gain, provided. It did something for me. Emotional, perhaps, but really, really cool. And then last, you have our love for another human being, which I think is what we most often think of when we talk about love. If you just tell somebody, what is love? We kind of dismiss the other things because we think about the human interaction. And when we are uniting in the interest of feelings, that stands alone. That's not, I think we start to recognize that loving a car or loving grandma's breakfast or even loving a pet really pales, because this is, again, the uniting simply for the interest of our feelings, how we feel when we're with somebody. I think this is what we most frequently identify. I think that's a fair statement. This is the example that keeps us from sleeping. This is, when we meet somebody and there's so much potential and the what ifs. This is when we say, I think I love this person. And with that, we engineer creativity and that we didn't even know was inside of us. And there's just energy. There's, enthusiasm, excitement, where hours pass and it feels like minutes. But yet when you're away from people, even for an hour, it feels like days. And so this, I think, is where we really start to just really embody the definition of love. I know when my wife leaves, and this is really more of a confession than anything, but when my wife is leaving out of town for whatever her unsatisfactory justification is, like, say, visiting her best friend, I'm actually upset before she even leaves. Stop talking. I kind of like, which is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not saying that I'm smart. I'm just saying that I don't get it, but I'm so affected, when she leaves and how I feel about her, that my mood changes. And then when she's gone, I really don't even want to talk to her because I'm mad, I'm just mad that she's gone, and I want her to be, within a couple hours of me, of seeing her again. And so that's kind of funny, but it really, when we love another human, that really is what gets us deep. And this is called tug of heart. That's what tugs at our heart. Let's see here. Perhaps, let's see, maybe I was making a note here. Maybe it has more to do with the traditional and insatiable appetite of what lies just beyond our firm grasp. And I was actually thinking about my wife when I wrote that because you know, I love her, yes, and it's never more obvious than when she's gone. When she's gone, I'm just absolutely annoyed. So there you have it. That's um, kind of a jump off. And when Lori comes back, I'm going to have her come back to this topic, and she can tell us kind of what she thinks. Furthermore, I'm very interested to know what any of you might um, see, feel, or know that isn't here, because we're not the authority. We're just trying to get through this and discuss topics that matter. Um, Gonna keep this short because my other half is gone, so you will get half the program, which seems fitting. Like and share Strong Island Entertainment, Strong Island Radio. Without Bobby, whom we love, and I'm not using that in a cheap way, but we're able to unite as siblings. We're able to unite in understanding, and we're able to better clarify what it is we feel in our hearts. So until next time, oh, which is going to be something super special. It'll be short. Bobby's going to join me, and we're going to talk about something kind of exciting that's coming up. But until then, have a good day. Adios.